Welcome to Sooner Esports Unraveled. My name is Mav Benson, and I'm your host today. Today we're joined with Nolan. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Would you tell us a bit about yourself?
So my name is Nolan Richardson. My in-game name is Enrich My Beak. I'm from Wichita Falls, Texas. I graduated from Holiday High School in 2017 and am now a third-year law student at the OU College of Law.
That's awesome. How does OU Esports fit into this?
So it's kind of unique, to be honest with you, being a law student now in grad school, but within everything, I got the opportunity last year when Halo Infinite started its development. Just kind of fitted in my schedule. It's typically nights and sometimes weekends, but it fits nicely into a law school schedule where it's typically 8 to 5.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you mentioned the Halo team. Have you been on it since the beginning of the club? I know it's a recent development in esports.
Yes, so Halo Infinite started up last year. Like I said, I'm a competitive player on the team, on the Halo Crimson roster. It started early February of last year. Shout out to our old coach, Jackson, who's now transitioned into the Fortnite part of the esports program. But he started it up. We had tryouts, and we started with an initial 6-man roster. I was initially not a starter because of law school. I was competing in other different things, but then got the opportunity later on in the semester to get my chance, and I've never looked back. I've been a starter for the last year and a half now. Luckily, we had a great coach. We had a great group of guys. And then we got lucky with our captain at the time who had competed in national events. So he's been a great welcome sign for us moving forward.
That's awesome. So how, why did you decide to join the Halo team out of all the aspects?
So it's, once again, kind of a unique experience, right? Because of law school, I had no focus on esports, but the opportunity presented itself. And my family and my friends that I play Halo Infinite with told me, Nolan, you're really good, so you should try out. And I did, made the team, and like I said, it was a great first year, finishing top 16 out of over 90 schools nationally. But now I think we could push top 10 for sure. We've got a great group of guys coming back, and I look forward to this season starting next week.
That's awesome. I guess what opportunities you see that have opened up to you now that you're competing?
So it's unique. We got the opportunity to play with our now coach in San Antonio over the summer. Me, one of our players, and then our coach went down there and played throughout a weekend. So that was a neat opportunity that I got to have. And then this year, I recently got a job that focuses on development of a particular studio for both esports and podcasting. So that's super neat to have the opportunity because of my past and my present in esports itself.
That's awesome. I guess how you said this is a very unique experience for you, and it's something different from law school. Do you see this being a part of your future as well, or do you want to focus more on your law aspect?
My future, I want to become an agent. So now that you have NIL and you have these esports departments popping up all over the country, the opportunity is not only just in sports, it's in esports as well. So I'm interested to see where that moves and how it grows. But I think I'll always have my finger on this particular aspect. I think the friends and the memories that I've made over this year and this past year have been indelible. I've got a great working relationship with Moog as well, and so the opportunity that this presents, not only presently at OU, but also in the future as an agent, when you're looking at a lot of these agencies are moving towards the esports side, trying to get their finger and their foot in the door, and so at the end of the day, I think I'll always have a passion towards it, and probably will always keep my eyes towards it a little bit.
That's so cool. I guess if you could only take one thing away from your esports experience and being on the competitive team, what do you think has stuck with you the most?
I think it's the brotherhood that I have built with these guys, and the family that we've built with everybody that's around the program in general, that's outside of just the competitive nature, right? This particular program has built a foundation that every single person that comes in can kind of build upon and find their mark in this world. And these guys, no matter if it's success, the downfalls, we've recently had some loss of family members, and these guys have always come to our back, and we're the first people to reach out. So at the end of the day, these 9 guys have become brothers to me, and I'd go to war with them any day of the week. So these are guys that I plan to keep on my life moving forward. So that would be the one thing I would come out with at the end of the day.
That's so much fun. Sounds like you've had a really interesting experience throughout esports, and being able to create those lifelong friendships is very amazing. And I guess, is there anything that you specifically think that would improve your brotherhood, that esports could be heading towards, or just that you think would be interesting to see?
I think the one thing that everybody looks for when you're building a program in general and you're building friendships is support, right? Like I said, these guys have been with us, right, through different losses and family members, the successes, the winning, and everything else. And the laughs are amazing, but the support's even greater. And, you know, whether it's watching a stream, watching us win games, coming out to support us, or supporting the program in general, support has and always will be the one thing that everybody can rely upon for most things. And so support is great, and these guys have been here through thick and thin, so I'll support them and they'll support me back.
That's awesome. I guess if there was one thing you could change about Halo, what would it be? And I guess this is kind of tying into my next question. If you could live in the Halo world, would you?
Ooh. One thing I would change, I think anybody would change more maps. That's kind of the easy fallback. A lot of people are looking towards past Halo games, and they're releasing some new maps. But, you know, that support from the developers would be nice, and they've had a lot of change of scenery on that particular aspect. Now, whether or not I would live in it, that's interesting. I want to say yes, but then you have companies that came out with a new TV show of Halo, and it's like, do I really want to live in that world? It'd for sure be interesting. I would probably say yes. We'll go with the experience.
That's awesome. And final question. Moving on, how do you see that esports has affected you as a person?
I think it gave me a different outlook on life, right? Because I believe that people have a particular image in mind when they think of esports, or they think of gamers or streamers. But through this experience, you get to see all walks of life. On our team in particular, we have 2 current or former military duty members, and then you have 2 people, both our captain and me, who are in graduate school going through that. And then even in our undergraduate players, they're from all walks of life. They're not just in computer science, for instance. So it opens up a new world for me and understanding towards that particular industry. But at the same time, too, you see the nuance of the world. And I think this is just the beginning. Esports is on the rise, and I'm glad to be a part of it. I'm glad to be a part of the start for this program in particular.
Well, thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. This was Sooner Esports Unraveled. Welcome to Sooner Esports Unraveled. I'm your host, Mauve Monlonis Benson, and we're here today with Kate. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, so tell us a bit about yourself.
Yeah, so my name's Kate Fernie. It's a Fern online, and I am the Influencer Development Director for OU Esports.
That's awesome. So what in particular is the Influencer Development Director position?
Yeah, so basically I work with our stream team, which is basically a group of streamers who all stream for entertainment on OU's official Twitch page. And so it basically gives this team of people a chance to really explore the influencer side and just the entertainment side of gaming for the university.
That's awesome. I understand that it recently went through a few changes, including with the name. So I guess what are the differences that we now see?
Yeah, so we just changed from streaming entertainment to influencer development, and I was really happy to kind of be the one to kind of spearhead the name change and just the change in the program in general, because I think a lot of us, especially in this generation, have grown up watching influencers, people on YouTube. I watch YouTube more than I watch actual TV. And so when you look at like Twitch, you see everyone wanting to kind of start, doing that, becoming an influencer, and it's all about building a brand. And streaming entertainment, it is still, streaming entertainment, but we really wanted to focus on building the brand and making that person kind of develop who they are and what their brand is. And so kind of switching more towards influencer development not only gives our streamers that chance to kind of really focus on what they want their brand to be, but we also kind of push that outward, working with the athletics department, working with other people to kind of build a brand around themselves.
That's awesome. So I guess you touched a bit on how they're influencers now. Do you want to talk a bit about the difference between just being streamers and now the whole influencer as a brand?
Yeah, well, I mean, the fun thing about Twitch is that like anybody with a computer that kind of functions can stream. But I think when you kind of take that leap into influencer, it becomes more about taking it a little bit more seriously and wanting to make you and yourself a brand. So that's, streaming on a consistent schedule instead of just, whenever you feel like it. So you can kind of build an audience and finding more ways to build with an audience, such as having your own Discord server or just kind of building a community with not only your audience, but with other streamers.
Yeah.
And so that kind of what elevates it from just streaming to actually trying to be an influencer.
That's awesome. And how are you finding your role to be? How are you balancing esports and your personal life?
I'm very I'm busy all the time. But I think what's important to me is always just kind of like laying out, okay, this is what needs to be done. And I think when I stepped into this position, I kind of wanted it to be more than it was before. I think I'm wanting to do more, so we're planning on doing, some more team stream stuff. We did a little bit of it last year, but I think I kind of want to see the team do some more things together this year, which we're working towards, which is super fun. And also just working more on giving each other feedback, saying, hey, your stream is great, but let's try this, because we want to help each other grow. That's why we're a team.
Yeah.
And so I'm kind of trying to spearhead that change, and I think so far everyone has been really excited about it, and everyone's streams so far have been amazing, and they're doing really good work. So I'm very happy to be a part of this.
That's so much fun. How do you see esports playing a role in your future and your career?
Yeah, well, I'm a senior now, which means it's job hunting time, which is always scary, but I think before I had even really started doing esports, there was no world where I was going to be working in gaming, where I had any thought of, I'll go work in gaming. I just, played video games for funsies and that was it. But getting to kind of start doing this and see people taking Twitch and streaming more seriously kind of makes me feel like, it's possible for me to work in this. So I'm definitely going to be, throwing my resume and reel at, everybody and just kind of seeing what happens. But I definitely would love to continue working in this field.
Yeah. What is something that has impacted you about esports, or something that you've taken and it has changed your life almost?
Yeah, well, so when I first started in the OU Gaming Club, I was a transfer student as a sophomore, and so I didn't really know anybody. I hadn't really gotten to do all those, freshman things where you go learn about all the clubs. Like, I didn't really know anything about it. And so when I first joined, I was really nervous because, like, I don't really play any, like, first-person shooters or what normal people would consider, like, games. Like, I was like, oh, I play The Sims and Minecraft and Undertale, like, every minute of my life. And so I was like, oh, those aren't, like, they're games, but they're not, like, games, you know? Which is such, like, I understand why I thought like that, but it's not what gaming is. Gaming is literally every game from Stardew Valley to Overwatch or Call of Duty, you know? And so I think once I kind of got into it and realized that, like, oh, there are people who enjoy these games just as much as I do, and I'm still a part of this community no matter what game I like, was really impactful for me. And now I've kind of gotten to make some really good friends and learn a lot about the industry because I just kind of took a leap and kind of learned what the community was all about.
That's awesome. Now, fun question. What's your favorite video game?
My favorite video game? Oh my god, it changes so often, but I probably have to say The Sims 4.
Oh, yeah.
I have so many hours on this game because I think, like, The Sims 4 just became free, like the base game did, and I had it pulled up on my computer and a friend was like, oh, are you gonna download The Sims 4 now that it's free? And then I gestured to my almost 1,000 hours of playing The Sims 4, and I was like, no, I haven't already. We've been here. So I've been playing The Sims, and, like, especially The Sims 3, for years. Like, that got me through middle school. Like, I loved that game, so I think no matter all the games that come, I'm like, I'm gonna keep playing The Sims.
That's so much fun. If you could live in the Sims world, would you?
I mean, honestly, that's the whole point of it. It's pretty similar to normal life, but I think I probably wouldn't, because don't get me wrong, I love The Sims, but I will freely admit it's a very buggy game. And so there are a lot of bugs and issues, so I think, while it seems less complicated, it also seems more complicated because you just catch Sims, like, standing still and not moving, and you're like, hello? Can you do the thing I asked you to do, please? So probably not, but I'll still play it.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
It was really fun listening to all these new developments. But yeah, this was Suna Esports Unraveled.
All right, welcome back to my face on the closeout of our 24-hour giving day. And so I want to recap a little bit about what you experienced if you didn't watch all day, and hopefully you guys got some rest if you did, somewhere in there. But OU Giving Day is about students, especially from our perspective, students really putting the foot forward to say we want more opportunities, we want to showcase who we are, we want to be proud of what we do, and then put that energy facing to showcase all of what we do on the community side and putting on events and the sensibilities and emphasis on those things, as well as the news and media team who shares their perspective on the importance of journalism and storytelling, as well as the production team in narrating games and what really makes esports a captivating event and entertainment industry, all the way down to the streaming influencers and Kate's team throughout the day, kind of being our foundation and showcasing the need for ambassadorship and live streaming and interactive platforms, all of which are now kind of mainstream ways of how we market to a demographic that oftentimes is misunderstood, is introverted, socially awkward, especially depending on the games that you play. Not looking at you, League of Legends or Valorant, but at the same point, also creating an opportunity of camaraderie and fellowship as a means to help those students and those initiatives have more visibility, have more acceptance, and get more buy-in to create more opportunities to provide scholarship, to provide venue, to provide a curriculum, and eventually career placement. Regardless of it being in esports or the gaming industry specifically, at the very least, growing skill sets that make students marketable, whatever industry they choose to become, and whichever form they choose to take. And so as we close out this last hour, I wanted to open the questions or open up anybody that's in the audience to any questions that you may have, whether it's general, broad, narrow, specific. I will say that I will decline a certain question if I feel it's going to be very long-winded. And for those that know me, I get very long-winded. So I want to keep it short so that, one, I can get some rest and get us closer to a 12 midnight, getting us to a midnight stopping point, but not too much further than that. At the time of this moment is the last 26 minutes of the hour of OU Giving Day. And again, for OU Giving Day, it is a campus-wide initiative for fundraising across all student organizations, departments, institutions of learning. Any kind of area on campus can basically have a concerted effort towards raising funding for the university in all types of different ways. And the majority of it is coming in donations. You have companies that will match donations. You have companies that will set out kind of a mission and call to action to their staffs and workforces. You have student orgs that will put in this work, 24-hour streams. Last year, we dominated this space as the world was not quite ready, or OU Giving Day and OU Advancement was not quite ready for a community and an organization that is built around 24-hour streams for charity initiatives. But last year, the university as a collective raised just over $11 million. And that was a call to action from the president at the time to at least raise 10. I'm looking at the numbers right now, and they've raised over 22.6 million. So the question is that those that are fans of the pro esports sector and they look at the current kind of disintegration as we see certain pro brands, kind of die off and lose some steam, which was kind of anticipated with the influx of venture capital funding and other energies moving into the pro sector that have now started to redact their money as they're not getting their return on investments. We still see an example right here where you have a public university that not only doubled, but more than doubled what they raised in it. And so it's more about saying, let's support the things that have infrastructure. Let's support the things that have stability and that can prove it forward. And now, as a department at the University of Oklahoma, we are an extension of that stability. We are built on a university that's 132 plus years old, and that also gives us an upper hand when it comes to our topic of gaming and esports legitimization in comparison to the pros. Versus, if you take any professional org, are any of them 132 years old? And that might seem a little bit apples to oranges, but at the same point, it's still the very cultural foundation that this program is built on before we get to the gaming topic. And it is absolutely significant about the future trajectory of what we will be able to build as we continue to mature and move through time. So I really wanted to make that statement to help kind of drill it in into anybody that's watching, anybody that comes back and watches this after that time because they're not awake right now, and understand that when you start to compare them in the scene of how the core foundation of these things are built, they are not the same. Even though optically at the front, the intention looks the same, the ground that they're built on and the concrete that's poured underneath it are very, very different. And so for us, as an update, we're currently at 3,670 raised between our challenges and donations. And I look at it like this, and I will share the comparison. Last year, that domination came in the form of the OU Giving Day producing challenges that had no cap on it, like literally could go and win every single challenge that was out there. And we dominated that. We won several first places, several second places, several first of the hours. And I think we had around 4,000 in contributions, and then the rest of that 11K was from challenge bonuses. This year, they learned that lesson, and they basically capped our organizations to 3 challenges, no matter which placement. So if you won a third place, and then a first place, and then for whatever reason, won a fourth first place, that fourth first place wouldn't count. Only the first 3 wins in order counts. So it's still a little bit of a flawed system, in my opinion. However, any opportunity that impacts student engagement, regardless of it being under the OU esports brand or umbrella at all, is a win in my book, as all students need support and help. Obviously, I have bias towards our students in our programs, as I should as a director, but at the same point, there are students that struggle to pay and afford college and higher education, even have food issues and eating on a regular basis. And this types of money can go to those types of things, as things like the OU Food Pantry are part of those fundraisers, as well as the Henderson Scholars, who are first generational students. And then you have a lot of like native clubs and things like this, indigenous, that often come from socioeconomic barrier backgrounds. All of these things are significant. And why I have no shade, no hate, no frustration with the fact that we may not have reached what we met last year. Any dollar that comes into our wallets and into our coffers helps us build a program that's better for the future. Before I open up to questions, and you guys are welcome to drop questions if you want to now, and I'll get to them as I close out my Moog spiel. But in the next chapter of what we represent, earlier today I shared the venue. I walked through the entire physical space of where we're going and where we're going to live on campus, including some ideas about how we're going to leverage that space in the short term, medium term, and long term over the course of the next 18 months. In the next upcoming weeks, for those that are members of the organization and have access to our developmental discords, I will be producing video content that basically reveals some new policy changes as we go into the ratification process to review all of our policies into the summer that we do every year, but also staging for how we use this venue, how we're going to deal with fundraising. One of the biggest questions that we had, in fact, was from Aloe on the Splatoon team earlier, was how do I support an individual team? Well, this is a question that we've been asked several times, and to be honest, it's not that we didn't want to enable it, but there's some strategic reasons why. If we talk about the word gamer, a lot of people will define anybody that plays video games as that singular term. The problem is that inside of our cultures, you can talk about console gamers and PC gamers, often very different cultures. A League of Legends player versus somebody who plays Animal Crossing. Well, there's some convergence there, but maybe they're more of a Terraria or a Minecraft player and they don't really have any convergence. Very different dynamics and very different diversity in what they play, but yet the world defines us as gamer. So when we talk about development and intentional strategy, if we were to split all of our different initiatives into their own efforts without them being strong enough, then what we would end up happening is slowing the rate of growth, and in fact maybe stunting the rate of growth completely and even reversing the rate of growth, because then you would be like, we have to think about it from the context of somebody who might be generationally separated, not a gamer, not sensitive to gaming, or legitimately older in age, and has let go of the topic of gaming or never enjoyed it in the first place. So when I talk about Call of Duty and then I talk about Overwatch, they're still just saying, oh, you play video games, and they dismiss this topic and they into a singular definition. So if I was to fragment OU Overwatch, OU League of Legends, OU OU Splatoon into their own initiatives, they would flop, or they would not be as strong until the foundation that we're building in the department is strong enough to support the creation of content across all of these things. And so this is the first awareness, and we'll start marketing this tomorrow for Sunday, this upcoming Sunday, where our Overwatch team, which tends to be our most hyperactive in regards to new initiatives and kind of defining the way that we want to structure our future, is going to have their first individual 12-hour stream from 1 p.m. to 1 a.m. on Sunday. And they will be streaming out of our new venue. Even though it's not quite built yet, we're going to utilize that space to enable that team's initiative. And we're going to take that as an example of showcasing and building the pathways and policies that is going to empower all of our different initiatives to start taking more ownership and stop waiting on me as much. And by enabling it to saying, yes, you can use the brand this way, we can sell these things, you can articulate that this is what you can get in return in that donation, or in that contribution, or lining up potential sponsors for future venue development and things that will be revealed. So on Sunday, we will also be revealing at 5 o'clock the first formal marketing deck for our development that is meant for all of our students to use and pass it on to their parents, who can pass it on to their networks, pass it on to any company or professional peers, and start using that grassroots network across a sea of 182 students plus to leverage the opportunity of saying, we want support. And this will mimic nothing foreign. It feels foreign to a lot of people thinking about it for the first time. But when we do think about it in the context of, you don't see OU athletics fundraising as OU athletics heavily. You see it as OU football, OU softball, OU basketball, OU soccer, OU gymnastics that have their own fundraising initiatives. And this is the start of that first split, because Overwatch is proving that they are strong enough to be able to take on that weight. And so in that process, we will also be defining how we classify scholarships, varsity, and then non-varsity titles or club titles at this current naming structure, and what we're going to evolve them in. And then the ability for every single team to become varsity status if they hit these criteria, which means the challenge is no longer on my seat exclusively. It will now be on the seat of the teams to take more ownership and accountability into their programs. And if they truly want it, here's the recipe and the method to get it. And so that's a big milestone in regards to me taking my hands off the reins a little bit, as I put majority of my attention on fundraising for the venue and operations, aka jobs, while students take a little bit more ownership on things like travel, scholarship supplementation. And once I get the venue completed, once I get the operations under control and elevated to our next plateau, then obviously I'm going to redirect right back to scholarships and further bolstering that student journey. So OU Giving Day is predominantly for us focused on students taking ownership of the ability to raise funds to support scholarships for the next generation of students and those that are currently still going to be here for the following year. And that's why it's significant for us and why we put a 24-hour stream out, because a lot of donations don't necessarily come in on OU Giving Day. They will be inspired because maybe somebody's not available, or parents aren't available, or alumni not available, or sponsors aren't available, and they go back and review those things for the next weeks to come, and then they still give a contribution to after the fact. I think last year, while we raised formally 11.7K, we ended up also securing an additional 35K after in the next 60 days afterwards. One as a corporate sponsor, our first corporate sponsor from an oil and gas company, Williams Energy in Tulsa, and the others were trickle donations that came back and said, I wasn't available OU Giving Day, but I still wanted to contribute. So that's why we put out a 24-hour stream, so that people can review it in their own time, and that we're documenting it so that those can come back and also learn about what's to come. Many people did not realize that, one, the program still exists. We still have a lot of work to do in the visibility of it. But those that did exist did not understand how far in development it has become now, with a venue that is in prime real estate and on campus, and has strategic opportunities with us moving into the SEC and 1 year earlier, starting in fall 24. That will play a critical role in our revenue generation and sustainment, and will allow us to create more opportunities for students to continue to grow themselves as we grow the program. So I'll stop with the MOOC speeches right there, and see if anybody's got any questions or anything of that sort. And then I'll fluff if I need to get us to midnight. But are there specific opportunities now or soon for involved students to foster a path to career route for their respective involvement? So this is definitely one of the weaker points of development from my seat. Now I continue to beat my head on this more and more in regards to how do we help students actually get career placement in the space. And a big portion of that is stunted in its growth and trajectory because of what's happening in the pro scene. And from my hot take on why the pro scene is the way it is the same reason that we exploded from being under 2,000 student members in our Discord to over 3,000 during that COVID pandemic. You had that influx of investor money coming into the pro sector, and it was the only thing you could invest in. Everything else was shutting down, or everything else was already oversaturated that was here. So the idea of supporting companies that had stability that you can invest in was very, very slim. The world literally turned its head upside down, and esports became one of those things that still had visual appeal, and now is in a corrective measure as that money is proving that it is not being returned on investment because it got oversaturated really, really fast. And I think a big portion of that is also due to the fact that not the majority, but a large portion of the pro sector is still that very much passion energy. And there's nothing wrong with passion energy. I am a steward of passionate energy all day long. But one of my biggest weaknesses is transitioning from passion to business intention. And there has to be a difference between the two. Passion is about setting a vision, a dream, a goal, a hope. Business is about executing those things. And so when you have a passionate person that says, I just want to create this or I just want to create that, really listen to that verbiage. I just want to create, end of scope. Whereas a business person says, we want to accomplish these goals. Here's A, B, and C that we want to have as metrics, execute. And that's a very big difference. And I think a lot of the orgs that really spawned up at the start of COVID and that influx of money and sponsorships had that and then couldn't scale up in time. Or as that influx of money for the brands that was already existing could not scale up in time to the point that was creating revenue. And because of the oversaturation into the industry, everybody was split focused. If you're watching Splatoon, now you had multiple things. If you're watching Overwatch, you had multiple things. Everyone had multiple things, and it was hard to drop your money in one bucket on top of a economy where people were losing their jobs. So the very people that were investing money into an industry and growing an industry optically, well, the consumer of those industries was having less capital and less money to spend that money with because they weren't able to go to work, or they had reduced hours, or they were laid off. And so that's what I want to set as the foundation. It's not the answer to the question. The answer to the question then becomes, with the pro sector now currently wounded, the collegiate sector, and I was actually having a conversation with my peer from TCU, a Big 12 peer, who is also working on development in esports, about 4+ years now in development. And they're a considerably younger developer, and I don't knock that as a negative, but it also puts into perspective. Again, for those that don't know, I'll continue to do this. I'm 41 years old. I'm an MBA. I have an undergrad in IT. I'm a prior service veteran, third generation educator. I've lived some life. I have some experiences, and I still have tons to learn. However, for a lot of us, we optically look about thinking about path to pro mentalities. Path to pro in the context of, I want to be an Overwatch competitor. I want to go into the pro sector. Well, there haven't been great scenarios or great examples of that actually happening. There's few examples, but a lot of times those students that are those prospective students and those talents in a game like Overwatch are already in Overwatch, and then they come back to college after the fact. That will correct itself in time as the scholastic space continues to validate its worth. However, the collegiate scene is slept on in the context of validity in the pro sector and competition. But what also the collegiate scene does is sleep on itself. So if we think about it, and I'm going to make this really bold hot take on air, and I don't mind making it, but if you talk about a company like 100 Thieves, and I have a lot of respect for Nadeshot and what he's done, there's not really any negative here that I'm going to say. It's not anything a jab at this. But if you ask Nadeshot to his face and he talks about what's 100 Thieves represent, what is 100 Thieves about? Well, they're 40% an esports company, 40% an influencer and marketing company, and then 20% a merchandise company. And in that vein, that diversification, even with layoffs or any potential, restructuring, provides some form of redundancy in that space. But 100 Thieves is how old? Now, throw OU or any university, especially the bigger universities, and currently even the smaller universities are really dominating, especially the private universities, and talk about their age. Talk about if they have teams that are competing on a national or global stage. Then talk about also the marketing, media, and components that they can build. And then talk about licensing where they can create merchandise. OU, as an example, has a top 10 athletics brand in the nation. That's how it's defined. That's not me saying it. That's what other people are calling us. And if we can leverage that, which we do, and when we start to truly flex that, the world gets smaller in the context of the potential of what we can do as we continue to mature and build all of our policies, execution, and further recruitment on top of facilities and everything else. So I'll share this story because it's still one of my favorite memories of this last school year, and the last 2 years of development, as the state of Oklahoma's K-12 energies have grown up exponentially. We collaborated and now have declared publicly in a press release early this year the support of OKSC, or Oklahoma Scholastic Esports, which was founded by a teacher in a rural school in Canute, which is kind of like the salt of the earth type of teacher. And again, growing up as the son of an educator who worked in low income sectors and risk prone student demographics and low socioeconomic statuses, that means a lot to me because I understand that hustle. I understood that, we've all had probably at least one amazing teacher who absolutely bent over backwards to help us when we needed it. And this is that kind of teacher. So building it on that back of a teacher who has low resources in a state that doesn't value its education the way that some other states do, I became very, very fond of it. And that program, or that league, now represents over 140 high schools and middle schools, and has programming now for grades 4 to 12. So all that's lacking in the state of Oklahoma is now K-3, which is nuts. Now, granted, it's a smaller state, but it's a great way to capitalize on the fact that it's a smaller state. And so now we'll be working on hosting things like state championships and stuff like this for the future of the school. But one of the things that they do in their leagues is they obviously are building leagues around what the collegiate space is doing and what the pro space is doing. So naturally, they have Overwatch and Valorant, or they're working on Valorant. They've had Apex. They have League of Legends. Even though the Play Versus debacle, they were bringing League of Legends back. And now with state mandates, we'll see, because Tencent is about to get banned a little bit, and it's already starting in Texas. So that'll be an interesting conversation for the future. But they also do WWE. And I laughed at the fact that they did WWE until I watched their state championship, or we got invited to an event, and they hosted the grand final inside of a boxing ring, and they put the console in the middle of the boxing ring, and the visuals of that were just insane. They were just nuts. They had a title belt as the trophy, and the fact of them doing WWE became the non-factor. The experience that the potential student had on being on a boxing ring stage to compete in a WWE esports tournament in high school, I can't quantify the value of what that did for that student. That student was also, who won, that student was also a 3.7 GPA National Merit Scholar in the end, who attributed the fact that they had an esports program in their high school to their success of getting recruited into college, regardless of WWE not really being a thing anywhere. And it made me really think about something that is right in front of our faces that we often struggle with when we get into our tunnel vision about being passionate about something. And I took 10 steps back and I really thought about athletics programs very similar to our own, like athletics program. How many athletes in OU as a D1 school go into the pro sector? How many sports actually have a pro sector extension? I can reference softball. It would be at best minor leagues. I can reference gymnastics. It becomes Olympics. Outside of that, really don't get to see it anymore. Rowing, an Olympic path, and that's about it. Fencing for some schools, maybe an Olympic path, and that's it. Football, basketball, soccer have pro sector pipelines, but less side on the soccer side for women. Volleyball, also more of an Olympic development past college or in college. And so there are tons of students and tons of resources poured into sports that absolutely have no path past the college timeline. So if you adopt that mentality, why can't Splatoon be a varsity title? Because at the end of the day, as a University of Oklahoma and as an educator and a director in the space, my goal is to grow students. Yes, career is a component of that, but it doesn't have to exclusively be a path to esports in the context of working in the industry. It can be growing the student using esports and gaming as the means to break ice, to grow them into their best form, whatever that may be that they choose. So that also will change the mindset of how we're building policy and what will enable pretty much any title that meets the criteria, regardless of what you view it in the pro sector or not, as being viable for wearing the University of Oklahoma's brand on its chest and declaring it in registration as just Oklahoma. Just like Oklahoma football, Oklahoma, softball. When you watch those matches, it doesn't say Oklahoma Crimson or Oklahoma softball. It just says Oklahoma. And so we'll be defining those things in the future. So I know this is long-winded, Zach, but bear with me. So the last portion of this is that with that mindset, then it becomes endless. The esports space is not stable when it comes to the pro sector. The collegiate space is, however, unfortunately, it's just overutilized, understaffed, and that will eventually come to place. So as this venue comes online, as we start to partner with athletics for NIL collaborations, and as we start to do more, find more revenue streams, more sponsors that are already sensitive to the OU mission or collegiate mission or education, tax write-offs, these types of things are benefits that the pro sector do not have. And these are parts of our amenities and benefits of supporting a university that's a public university, especially that does have brand power, especially with the SEC move. That's a big deal. And that's going to also spawn it. Now, we also mentioned K-12 support infrastructure, not only in Oklahoma, but in North Texas. They're both growing exponentially. In fact, I'm paneling at Esports Arena Arlington at the end of this month for the Intel Inspire series in collaboration with TechSef, which is one of their state's largest K-12 leagues. And so all these things come to a head. While your timeline specifically, I feel is slightly ahead of the curve, there's going to come a point when I will be posting a job for a marketing coordinator or a marketing director or a news and media coordinator director, a production lead that's a full-time employee and not just a student employee or a GA, head coaches who aren't just volunteers or getting stipends or even GAs, full-time positions, coordinators, directors, all these things, all this infrastructure will come to life. And then we won't be the first one. I promise you that. We don't move fast. Anyone that's been in our ranks knows that. Policies, bureaucracy, politics stunts that trajectory and the speed. But the end result, make no mistake, is that goal. And so I did produce a preliminary budget, which I think you can actually see. And in that preliminary budget, I think there's a total of 20 FTE jobs. And that's anything from 0.5 student in workforce for that lab to news and media teams, producers and shoutcasters, head coaches, assistant head coaches, analysts, all the coordinator positions, assistant director underneath me. All of that is in the pipeline now and formally on paper identified and declared as intent. The last thing that I want to mention that correlates with this also is I think the biggest reason to help correct some of the pro sector problems is that we do need more professionals in the space, both in the collegiate space, but also in the pro sector space. And so we know that we can't reference many people in pro esports that have an esports degree. And I still agree with that, regardless of if a school is putting on, actual majors and minors, no shade thrown on that. However, for my strategy and our strategy, it's always felt better to take the curriculum that's already being taught and then leverage our program as a means to explore those techniques that you're learning in the classroom as a means to build your resume, which keeps you from being siloed to too much specialization so you can still be employable elsewhere. And the longer term strategy, though, is that there is a new expansion of our College of Business, specifically that in the last 3 or 4 years, they started a sports business division that didn't exist prior to that. And this was a mandate from the athletics director for OU, Joe Castiglione, who's often ranked as a top 10 AD in the nation, that wants to build that has a mandate and a narrative that they want to build Division I athletics directors. Because the majority of the athletics directors that do come from ours maybe go work at a D2 and D3. And there is a very distinct difference between an AD who works for a Division I power and a Division I non-power and a Division II and a Division III. It is a magnitude of exponential proportion of a leap in responsibility and management and logistics for each tier up. And with the D1 being ridiculously crazy in the scope of control, power, and responsibility. And part of the reason why they draw 6-figure jobs that are well over $300,000, $400,000, and even $500,000 a year, because they bring in so much money. But in that same conversation, the idea came up with sports business also looking at, they reached out to me and looking at the idea of evolving sports analysis, sports business, strategic intent, and strategizing to also include esports analytics and curriculum as portions of their degree. And it spawned an idea that in the future, we will not be recruiting 4-year students, we'll be recruiting 6-year students, where I need the specialization of a creative media production major, a professional writer, a journalist, somebody in sociology, somebody in psychology, somebody in law, somebody in business, international business, retail chain management, sports team management, sports business analysis. All of these, marketing, advertising, all of these are excellent undergraduate programs. But the portion that fortifies it is something like a Master's of Business Administration in Sports Team Management, or an MBA in general, or an MBA in Technology Management. And so what that would look like is basically recruiting students at 6-year terms where the undergrad is supplemented by the scholarships like from what Today raises to support understanding how to grow themselves on the ground floor, getting tasked from somebody above them, being responsible as a team, communicating effectively, getting through that time, hopefully getting into a leadership rank before they finish their undergrad, then become a GA where we take care of their graduate degree. And then formally at that end of that time, they're ending with a specialization in a broad topic that absolutely is marketable, not just in esports, but in multiple things. And then they know how to wield it as a business administrator or somebody who has business mindset, which is oftentimes the weakness point. And especially if you're in the fine arts side or the creative side, we suck at business. And I'm a photographer of 20 years. I sucked at business before my MBA for sure. But this helps solve that. So then you take that type of caliber of student and that type of caliber of professional who has a resume already of 4+ years of being involved in a program like ours that is doing competitions, invitational, summer camps, combines, K-12 recruitment, program intention, fundraising, and you also arm them with the credentials on academia, on the academic side, and how employable would they be? So then we basically Trojan horse the entire industry to say, these are the professionals that we need to stabilize this. For me as a VC, for me as a investor, for me as these things, I have more faith and understanding that you've executed these things, you're proven, you have use case data, and your strategies have worked in the private. It's less hesitation to make that investment. And that's what this is all about, setting you up for your best foot forward as best as we can. So... All right, and one single question in a Moog speech, we brought us to that final moment I'm gonna let any questions. What have we? Cool. No other questions. Cool. That means everybody's tired, which is how Giving Day should feel. Let me get one last tally on numbers. So the university currently is at $22,647,864.00 over a total of 5,035 gifts. And for us specifically, we are at 3,670 with a total of 111 individual gifts. So on that note, for Raymond and Christine, if you're still alive and watching this, you are welcome to post that final number on our socials and say thank you publicly on behalf of our entire community and collective of development. This is absolutely a win today. Again, every dollar matters. Every single dollar matters. And Raymond just posted that on Twitter, so thank you for that. And so all of this, regardless of comparing it to a previous year or current year, it is absolutely a success, because if we didn't put that forward, that money or that foot forward and that effort forward, it would be $0. And at $3,600, that's almost at our current scholarship rates, that's the news and media team. That's a production and streaming team. That is some of the smaller intercollegiate teams in regards to what we offer on a yearly basis. It doesn't require much. The scholarships are still low. And obviously, as we continue to fortify and unify our energies, it will become easier, because we will all understand the importance of it more, but also how to call upon it and execute these things better. And being able to fundraise is a wonderful skill set, I promise you, whether it is, for an initiative, something that you're involved in like this, or maybe you're a portion of a business that needs to say, hey, we want to send our team to this conference or whatever, but the company can't afford it. Well, if you understand how to leverage fundraising and speak to your audience and articulate what you do, it becomes exponentially easier. So it is one of those translatable skill sets that everyone should have at least an appreciation for it. No, it's never, for a lot of people, it is very uncomfortable to ask people for money. I'm one of those too, which I have to get over more and more as we move forward. But it is absolutely one of those hurdles I have. But at the same point, we're all going to learn together. And this speaks to exactly who I want to be in this space, where I continuously learn from students just as much as I mentor. And it becomes that symbiotic relationship of growing something together with a peer of amazing students who absolutely have talents and gifts that may have never been able to come to the surface of things that you can leverage, because the topic of gaming is still quite dismissed in the mainstream, as at least in the positions of powers that currently hold those seats in administrations, in politics, in in governments, and those types of things. And we are that movement. We are that statement against those things that say, we're not the 1.0 students. We're the 3.5s. We are the STEM tracks. We are the executors. We are the ones that say we're going to do something and we do it. We are the ones that took something from nothing and built an entire industry in the state of Oklahoma. We are somebody who took entrepreneurship and said, we're going to take a 130 plus year university and build an entire department within it. We all are part of that legacy story. And it is your choice of how much impact and statement you want to make within those ranks, because I welcome all levels of magnitude. It's just a matter of, do you want to do the work and do you want to rise to the occasion? And many students understand it. But it is absolutely an opportunity to get burnt out. It is absolutely an opportunity to have a gross misuse of time on top of still wanting to play games. I don't play games that much anymore. I love gaming. Believe me, I spend the money on the hardware. It's ridiculous. As you can't see, but there's a Xbox Series X right there. There's a 3080 in the case and a 13th gen i7 in the case. And I have a 5950 in the other room for editing. Like, I spend that money, but I spend more of my time building the pathway so all of you can do what you want, and explore this topic. And I love that. I have no regrets about it whatsoever. And I will never have regrets about that, because this is just, it fuels my soul. But what fuels my soul even further than what I can do for myself is seeing a coaches panel where they're fluid with each other, even though they have very different cultures of the games they play. Is seeing a team, or seeing high schoolers reach out to us and be able to articulate that this is the home because I'm not that far ahead of you as a student, and this has been my experiences and this is what it's given me. Or having alumni come back and say, these were the lessons that learned, these are the opportunities it afforded me, and these are the things that I value and I absolutely care about its future. The events where freshmen for the first time are on campus and in their first week are completely overwhelmed and anxious about who they're going to meet. Are they going to fit in? Are they going to find their rhythm now being away from home? And we providing a community that says, you're absolutely welcome here. And here's a menu that caters to your palate too. That's important. Having the ability of saying, let's personify who we are through our articles and our storytellers, building students to understand how to articulate a narrative and present the ideas of these things, as well as the ability to narrate a game in real time. Austin, our community coordinator, our production coordinator, did an 8-hour plus production of Bedlam practically solo. And that's the same job of being a producer in an ESPN pit for a game, except you have tons more cameras and tons more crew. But the foundation of the core of technique and the core of intent is exactly the same. Or Kate today, who coordinated across all of those efforts, a 24-hour stream, including my own scheduling, where I am not the person that says, that's where I'm going to slot in. It's figure it out, and I will put me where you want. And being able to rely on students to help build them up and gain confidence well before the time that they graduate is what I'm about. And what the end result of post-graduation is if you're employed, you're happy what you're doing, or you at least have a path to go to your next chapter, then I have done my job. But my job still doesn't stop when you graduate. My job stops when I stop breathing. So on that note, thank you for contributions throughout the day. Thank you for being a part of this. And for anyone that tunes in this afterwards, if you are interested in donating or being a sponsor of what I'm about to reveal on Sunday as well, as a heads up, at that 5 o'clock hour, it'll be Thumper and I on stream, coach of Overwatch. And when we reveal that, we're going to have a slightly refreshed OU Esports website Connect and Give page, where I will reveal that marketing deck and start the call to action, at least for Overwatch, as I build those videos for the org. And that will kick off our global initiatives. And then in July or August, we will actually put a dollar amount target in for the collective fundraising efforts across all of our own on a yearly basis to establish this is what it's going to take to maintain what you want. This is what it's going to take to get to where you would hope to be. And this is what it's going to take to feel all these different things and be very transparent about it. And then from there, we all have a goal to hit, and you all will be armed to help us meet that goal. So on that note, I'm going to sign off right here. Boomer Sooner, thanks for being a part of this development. And if you're not, thanks for being here to learn more about OU's esports programs and its cultures and the OU Gaming Club and that monstrous 3,200 member student org that we represent and that birthed this very department that has changed my 20-year career in IT to exclusively now do this in OU, as my 1-year anniversary was April 1. So you guys have a good night. Get that rest in if you've been here all day. And we'll see you in Discord. We'll see you on our socials. And we'll see you in games.